All right, Natasha, we are back. Fourth episode.
Oh my gosh. I know.
Fourth
I feel like every
episode.
time we go, I never would have thought, but I never would have thought. Like, I can't believe it.
I never would have thought. I've said it every podcast, like you said, never would have thought. But here we are. So look, it's been a couple weeks. We did 3 parts initially. I just texted you yesterday the most beautiful text message and messages we are still receiving from people who have heard your 3 episodes that we did together. And it resonated so strongly.
Man, I got tears in my eyes when I read that one you sent me. Just like a woman who's struggling in an abusive relationship and trying to get up the courage to leave. And when we started this, we set our intentions that, our entire mission was to tell this story so it could help somebody else. And the fact that it happened in folds and folds over than like my wildest expectations, but that even weeks later, we're still getting messages that it's actually doing some good. Like, it makes my heart sing, Sarah. It makes it feel like it was all for a greater purpose.
Oh my God. I mean, me too. And yeah, I mean, you do these things and people are going to listen because obviously how much the Kane Show meant to people. But I think then when you hear like how much it's changing people's lives and giving them the courage to make a change, whether it's in a marriage, a work space, with their children, addressing mom and addictions, it's so important. And I agree. I was so moved. I was actually going to read that message,
Yeah.
part of it, because it was just so special. Obviously we'll keep the person anonymous, but they write, hi, Sarah, I've been a huge fan since the Kane Show first started in 2006. I wanted to let you know how much the recent podcast with Natasha spoke to me. I've been in a very emotionally abusive relationship for over a year. This relationship got me into cocaine, which is the first drug besides weed that I'd ever tried. This guy not only used, but sold it too. I'm in the process of trying to get out of this relationship and get help for myself. It's been extremely difficult, but this podcast was the sign I needed to see. I hope to write back to you in a few months with a positive update. You guys are truly amazing, and I want to thank you for the impact you've had on my life. I could cry.
I know. I remember when I was in her position and, at my rock bottom in some of those worst moments, and God would send me little messages here and there, whether it was something I saw on television or lyrics in a song. I just posted on my Instagram this song that meant so much to me when I was at my rock bottom. And like, it's so crazy humbling to think that our podcast could be the message that he sends to somebody else who's at their rock bottom right now. Like,
Gives you
insanely
goosebumps.
humbling and beautiful and cyclical. And I
Yeah.
can't even.
So we're going to continue this. We don't know where it's going to go. We've sort of said that to each other offline. And we're open to, we always say this, like if anybody is listening, they run a podcasting company, they run a media company. I mean, maybe it's a TV show, maybe it's a podcast. We don't know. We're open to anything. So you can email and find us on Instagram,
We're not desperate whatsoever. Just whatever it is, we'll say yes.
whatever it is. So it's, the Sarah Fraser Show and Ms. Pink Monster on Instagram. But in the meantime, we just want to kind of continue really diving.
We'll just keep doing what we're doing. I mean, if it's still helping people, let's expand.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I just love talking to you because I learned so much about myself and just your bravery.
Oh gosh. I mean, that's very flattering. Thank you. But I mean, yeah. I don't know. It's crazy. But
well, today we're going to talk
it's
about
very therapeutic for me too, just to, I've mentioned this to you before, and I think we'll probably mention it this episode, but I don't have like a lot of girlfriends. But this community of women online is like my support group and my girlfriends. And when I get to interact like this with them and with you, it's like coming home to friends. So it's very therapeutic for me too.
Well, today we were going to dive into mental health a little bit more because one of the questions we got when we did the follow-up was, how have you guys taken care of your mental health? And then you and I both said, wow, over the years, we've had these mental health low points and how we came back from those. So today I thought we'd dive into that. And then we sort of said, because you do this at your house, and I do this with my marriage counseling therapist with Dan, is we'd start off the show with highs and lows of our week, because it's a great way for you and me to get to know each other since we're reconnecting. And then for our audience to kind of get some insight into us. Or in your house, you call it the rose and the thorn.
We called it your rose and your thorn. I think a therapist gave us the idea too. But the funny part is we actually haven't done this in years, because I would bring it up. And once the girls became like tweens, teens, I would just get like, oh, I don't want to, like, this is my thorn right now that you're making me do this. So I'm excited to have somebody to do it with again, because I love it. But teenage girls.
Well, tell me your rose and thorn of the week.
Okay, I'll go first. Let's see. My rose, actually, speaking of teenage girls, this past weekend, Harry was with his dad. So it's kind of nice that the girls and I get some time where it can just be, our little threesome again. And I took them for a girls' day. We went out shopping for fall clothes. The weather's getting crisper. It's sweater weather. So we just had a really nice day. And, the girls are best friends, worst enemies, sometimes more worst enemies, like they want to kill each other. But this day, Sam was helping Sophie like find her personal style, and everybody was getting along, and it was just nice. I miss when they were little and in princess dresses and glitter and running around, but this is nice too. They're like my little buddies. And I actually, believe it or not, like we went to Hollister, which I don't know the last time you went into a Hollister, but
it's been a while.
It's been a while, but I went in for them. I found so much cute stuff. Like found a cute sweater, these really they're fake leather pants, which you think from Hollister would look like a stripper, but they're not. They actually look real. And I mean, I have to wash it all because it all smells like a baby prostitute, because they drown their clothes in that awful perfume. But I found so much cute stuff, super cheap. So that was my rose. It was a nice day. Nice girls' day.
What was your thorn of the week?
Oh my gosh. I'm sure it has to do with this dog. Yeah. All right. So anybody who's ever had a boxer will understand this, but they're just like the goofiest, most loving, best family dogs, but they will eat anything. And I mean anything. This dog has stolen a bar of soap out of the shower and continued to eat the whole thing. But I was cutting the kids' hair. I gave Sam these cute curtain bangs, and like for Harry, like I shave underneath. So I had this big like pile of brown hair on the table. And this dog walks by and just sucks the whole thing up and swallows the giant hairball. So she's laying here on the ground right now. She's sick. So taking care of a sick dog who ate a giant hairball, and I won't get into the details with you because they're awful, but she's like pooping hairballs and scooting her butt on the floor. And I know. Yeah. But I was done wiping butts, but now I got to wipe the dog's butt. So
that would be a low for me too.
That is a low. That is a low that will repeat itself, I'm sure, next week with this dog. But what was yours?
Okay, well, mine too were the high for me, which I'm still enjoying, is I was asked to be a guest on the Do You podcast, which is
I saw that. Yes.
I know, which is like the #1 pop culture show. She became so famous for putting on her story all these anonymous, things from celebrities. And of course, now so many of the celebrities, their PR people feed her, it's wild. So to be asked to be a guest on her show after doing pop culture for 100 years was such a high. So I was really honored, and we just had a great time. And then somebody tried to cancel us because we talked about Scarlett Johansson being bad in bed. So that was kind of comical too.
Not to mention, how could she possibly be bad in bed? She's my female crush. Like you just ruined my girl fantasy for me.
It was a blind item on the podcast that Chris Evans had hooked up with her years ago and basically said she was sloppy in bed. So, me being the comic that I was, I said, basically, I mean, don't we think that she's a lazy lay? I mean, you're a superhero. You're a fabulous actress. You think she really tries hard in bed? I wouldn't. I got other things to do. I'm going to lay there. You do all the work. Oh my God. Somebody tried to take this and say that we were women against women and how could we say this to such a esteemed woman? I'm like, I don't think she's married to a comic, by the way. I think they understand it's a joke. So anyway, that was very comical. And then my low point, I'm going through it because we brought KJ to a preschool daycare and it's not going well. He hates it. He's like crying, and Dan dropped him off this morning and he cried for 45 minutes and was clinging to Dan. And so now I'm like, I feel like I don't think he's going to like it. So I'm
Dude,
feeling
that is
mom
the
guilt.
worst. I'm the worst person that you could talk to about that, because I'm the one that when I drop them off and they're crying, I'm like telling the teacher, if it's more than 5-10 minutes tops, you call me and I'm coming right back. Like, I do not leave them to figure it out and survive. I can't take it. Like when it's,
I
wanna
just
go home,
sent
mama.
the school a note and I said, I have an interview this morning until, 10 a.m. Can you let me know at that point if he's still crying? If he's still crying, I'm going to come get him. Yeah, I'm so with you. And we brought him yesterday, was a half day. And I mean, he doesn't even go full day. It's like a half day of a half day. And when Dan went to pick him up, he was like sitting at the table crying. So I'm like, I just don't think we can do it. I don't think we can.
Wait, like they left, it was a few hours and they didn't call you to say he was still crying?
Well, they said he cried on and off. And then when Dan had got there to get him, he was crying.
And he's what, like almost 2?
18 months. So he still has a little ways to go. I mean, I feel like it's maybe too young. I know. And this is like a preschool day. I mean, it's really more of a daycare, but they try to start, teaching them some basics and reading and all that stuff. And I don't know.
I'm sure you're going to get so many moms that respond to this and assure you that they will be just fine, because they will. They end up being just fine.
Yeah.
Just don't look to me to be that mom, because I'm not her.
You're sound like my mom. My mom's like, he's too young to be going to preschool daycare. Go get him. I'm like, oh my God, I know. So we'll see. I'm going to try it today and then go from there. I'm with you though. I'm with you. Like, I'm just like, but then that's terrible. Like if I have to work, I'd rather just put the TV on and sit him in front of that. And I'm like, well, is that really good? No, then he's with a nanny sometimes anyway. So there you go. But we can do a home mom podcast. Let's talk mental health.
Okay.
Let's talk mental health.
Not KJ's mental health. Let's talk about our mental health.
No, mine's not good today, but
poor baby.
All right. So I thought we could both talk about 2 points in our lives that our mental health was really low and how we came out of that, because we both have situations, that I think we've talked about too. We want to honor Kane, be truthful to who he is, some of the good, some of the bad. And one of my low mental health points was towards the end of my time on the Kane Show. But why don't you start and talk about 2 instances and how you overcame them?
Okay. Yeah. That's 2 definitely pop right into mind. The first one was actually well before anything that had to do with Peter or that whole unfolding of drama and trauma. It was when Sam was a baby. So, I've spoken about how I always wanted to be a mother and have a family. And here I had this beautiful little newborn and a baby girl, with all the pink and the ribbons, and like all of my dreams come true. And at first it was good. It was okay. But then after like a few months, she was probably like 4 months old, maybe, I started noticing that like I wasn't feeling like all the mushy, happy, lovey-dovey feelings as much as I thought I should be. I felt very lonely, extremely lonely, and just kind of depressed. I'd never been depressed in my life. I've always been like cheerful, upbeat, happy person, but this just felt like sadness all the time, but a different kind of sadness that I couldn't quite put my finger on. And it probably went from like when she, over the course of 2 months, like steadily got worse from 4 to 6 months old. And I kept thinking it would go away. I didn't want to complain about it to anybody because I felt like this is what I asked for. I wanted this lot, so I can't complain about it. And I figured it was also just, sleep deprived or being a new mom, or, I was away from my family. I just had all these excuses why it would go away. But instead of going away, it just progressively got worse. Like I got more, just more like not wanting to talk to people, a little more just in myself, like in my own little
Yeah.
dark world. And, Peter started noticing I was just a lot quieter, not really laughing as much, not wanting to interact with people. They say in like the depression commercials, like you lose the things that you love doing, you lose that enjoyment. And it's true. Like I stopped crafting and everything. And it went from that till like I would say when it got to its absolute worst, and I knew this was more than just like the baby blues, like they call it, was she was about 6 months old, and I had taken her. Oh, I remember we were going to the baby store, taking her to Bye Bye Baby down in Rockville. And I got her out of the car, like put her in the little stroller and went across the street to go into the store. And I looked left, looked right. And like I had this flash of a thought of, I just want to walk in front of a car. Like I feel that depressed and nothing. Like I felt sad, but I also just felt nothing, that I was like, I just want to walk in front of a car and have that just be over. Like, and it was crazy because most people's reaction to that would be like, oh my gosh, like that's an incredibly scary thought. But my brain felt like it was a very normal thought. Like that's how low things had gotten for me. So the fact that I felt like it was so normal and not shocking actually shocked me, thank goodness, and scared me. So at that point I finally spoke up and asked for help. um and for me, getting help was admitting it to my family, to my mom. My mom is my best friend, my rock. And she encouraged me that once I finally came clean to her about how bad it actually was,
Yeah.
to see a therapist, to call a doctor. Time to call a doctor. So I did that. I called a therapist that I luckily had already known and liked. And at first, when we had our first consultation, and I told her how bad things had gotten, she recommended medication. And my first reaction was like antidepressants, was like, I don't know, that's not really me. I wanted to kind of fight it. And the way she explained it to me that changed my mind and made me feel like it wasn't something wrong with me, quote unquote, was she said, think about your brain like it's a swimming pool. And most of the time, everything is blue and clear and lovely because the chemical balance is right in the pool. Sometimes the pH balance can get a little off and the water gets a little murky. She's like, if you need to picture it that like somebody drops some ink in the pool and all of a sudden it's not so blue, it's kind of gray, but you can easily fix it just by treating the chemical balance in the pool. And once you get those chemicals right again, it'll be nice and blue and clear again. And that made sense to me. It made me feel like it wasn't some sort of moral shortcoming on my part, but rather something that was going on in my brain that I couldn't help. So I agreed to go on antidepressants. We had to try a couple, and I think Prozac was the one that ended up working out well for me. And honestly, within a few weeks, certainly within a month, I felt like myself again. And the
Wow.
first thing I thought was, why did you fight this so long? Like, this is
Yeah.
amazing. Like, you've spent so many months being quiet about it, fighting it, being miserable. When if you would have just asked for help, you could have had that time and not suffered in silence for so long. So that was a really valuable lesson for me, that just speak up, man. Like, don't fight it.
You and I were talking about this, but those postpartum hormones are so real. And any mom listening, I mean, it's crazy. I've never had depression in my life. I've had points where looking back, I'm like, that was pretty low. I'm not, and who knows, maybe I needed help at that time and didn't get it. And then, situations changed. But my postpartum journey was one for sure where it was like, I was telling you this, I couldn't go out on balconies because I just felt like I could jump, like with KJ in my arms or something. And it was really, I couldn't get near an edge. It was just, and like you were talking about, in my brain, I knew like I wouldn't jump. Like obviously I wouldn't do that, but it was this weird, overwhelming feeling you have. And your body is really flooded with some wild hormones after you have a child. And of course, for me, I know one day my mom was there, my mother-in-law was there, and we had just gotten home. And again, you're exhausted. Now you have this third person in your house that you've never had to worry about. So there's so many things, but I remember just breaking down crying, like with the thoughts of like dropping him, like, oh my God, and I would bathe him in those, the bye bye baby bath.
You were telling me this.
I would bathe him on the floor because I was so worried. Just my mind was so paranoid of dropping him. And I knew like it was just such a little drop, little fall or whatever from that. So I would get down on my knees and like load up the bathtub and bathe him on the floor. You really, and I love where we're at because my OBGYN would call me, like the nurses would call and they go, how are you feeling? How's your mental health? Like, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts? Like, they just ask you now so much. And I even had other mothers come over to me, like when I was, when KJ was just weeks old, and say, okay, how are your postpartum thoughts? And because I experienced this or that. I mean, you really do. I guess, I don't know why our bodies chemically do that. It just, I guess maybe, I don't know if they're
so
trying
to kill the kid. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so.
I think part of it, because like I was telling you, I would be with Sophie and Harry, when it was just like the normal hormonal shifts. Like I would be bathing him in the tub, this little newborn, and all of a sudden like get a flash of an image of him going under the water. And it's like, I think it's just us getting used to this completely dependent little newborn that, they're 100% dependent on staying alive by us. And that's a massive responsibility. And it's a massive shift in your brain to have to get used to that responsibility. And hormones are crazy. I mean, don't get me, I have 2 teenage girls. Like, don't get me started on hormones. Hormones, man, hormones are like, they're like the Grim Reaper that comes in your house and like takes this sweet little girl you have and just replaces it with this insane, screaming little irrational teenage girl. But yeah, hormones, gosh.
Tell me about another time in your life. I love that you were so honest about how, going on antidepressants changed you. And I know so many people, men and women, that are on them or have been on them, and it's helped them immensely. So I love that we're getting to that point, but there is always something for people. I think it is that like fear of going on them because you feel like I failed, to some degree.
Mm-hmm. Like there's still a stigma to it some. And, if honestly, I was only on them for maybe 6 months before I went off of them. And then the depression was completely gone for many, many years. And some people, you stay on them the rest of your lives. But my whole thought is, if it helps, why not say yes?
Yes.
I mean, why fight it? It's very much like with getting help with your addiction. You don't want to admit that you're an alcoholic or an addict because there's such a stigma to it. But if that's what it takes for you to feel better and get control back of your life and find joy in your life again, just say yes. Say yes to whatever you have to do to make your mental health a priority, because it's just not worth wasting time that you'll never get back again being miserable.
No, 100%. Tell me about another time, another instance.
So the second time that I really struggled with my mental health, I mentioned in the first podcast about when Peter and I were going through the separation, and he had announced our divorce on the air and, told all these lies about me. And I had, just so many traumatic events, and was in a lot of pain that I turned to medications, not the good kind, the antidepressants, but like pain medications to self-medicate because I didn't know how to deal with pain. That was one. But then after I got help for that, things got better. But shortly after, I would say, well, not that short, maybe I'd been sober a couple of years, 2-3 years. Yeah, because Harry was a baby. And things were going well for me. I'd finally gotten the girls back, and that was a long, long struggle just to get them back. And actually, things were going well for me in that sense, but they were going very badly. And that's when Peter really started to go downhill with his addiction. And it became very apparent that he was spiraling. The girls were in a very dangerous environment, a very traumatic environment. So I was filing for custody to get them back 100%. That way he could get help. And I had a strong case. And I've never spoken about this before, and I don't want to get all emotional, but I mean, we've cried every other episode. So
Cry everyone, yes.
So I had a best friend at the time. I mean, you probably remember her, Megan. I mean, she was like my sister, like my soulmate. We had been best friends since our daughters were born. So this, many, many, many years. And she was going through everything, preparing the case with me, like she saw everything that I was going through and everything that was so awful that Peter was putting the girls and I through, and she was helping me to get them away from him. And at least that's what I thought she was doing. I still don't know exactly how it happened, but at some point she started working with Peter, and I don't know if she always had been. She always had a big fascination with the Kane Show, always was obsessed with following all of their social media and the show. And I don't know, but I found out that she had agreed to be a witness for him, to say that I had relapsed and I was a danger to the kids, and she didn't just tank my entire case, but she actually got the girls taken away from me. I can never explain, unless you've been through as a mother, not being able to be with your children when you want to be, not being able to hold them, love them, smell them. It's the worst pain you can ever go through. It's beyond a broken heart. It's guttural. And to have this happen a second time, that I was completely blindsided by, the first time I accept responsibility in that, I needed to get help. 100%. So even though it was awful not being with them, I knew I had a responsibility in it. I knew I needed to get help, and I knew that I could get them back and I could be better. The second time just caught me completely off guard, and it shouldn't have happened. It was just pure evil. And, we've both spoken about how manipulative he could be, but how clever he could be in his ways to take you down. And I think maybe he saw that he had a losing case and somehow was able to convince her to, I still don't know how he did it, man, but he convinced her to be a witness for him. And I lost them all over again. It wasn't like a judge took them away. We never got that far. I think either she or he called social services, and just between the two of them, nobody would believe me. Once you've been an addict once, you're kind of labeled that forever. And I think whether it was like the therapist or the attorneys, it was just, I just had such a,
So
I felt so like despaired that I would never see them again. It was
what actually shifted? Like, because you guys always had 50-50, right? Or 60-40, or is that how you got to 60-40? Was this
how we had, well, no, we had finally gotten back to that 60-40. And then I was trying to go to court again to get them away from him, like to have 100% custody, because he needed to get help. It was just, he was completely losing it. I mean, this is when listeners were texting in saying he was slurring on the air. I mean, it was just like the beginning of the end for him. And then, just like that, they were gone. And it's, people think when a mother gets their kids taken away, like, oh my gosh, she must be so awful. But it is easier than you think for it to happen. There's this woman I follow on Instagram. Her handle's called One Mom's Battle, and she does nothing but post stories to advocate for women that this happens to. lots of times when your ex is this narcissistic, controlling person, he uses the children to still control you because it's the only way he can. And with Peter, being able to just like control me by taking them away from me was the one way that he could just continue to get at me. So yeah, that happened, and that was awful. I remember just after they were gone, because the thing is, they'll take them away from you and then you have to fight to get them back. Like, you have to, it's not innocent until proven guilty, because they want to keep the kids safe. They just take them away and then you have to fight to get them back. And I remember just after they were gone, just like sobbing on the bathroom floor the whole night. It was just the whole night till like the sun came up again. And I remember my husband and Harry were asleep in the bed and trying to like stifle the moans so I wouldn't wake them, because it was just like, I don't think I have it in me to do this again. And this time I didn't deserve it, and it happened. Like, how am I ever going to fight him again? Like, it felt completely hopeless. And
So,
once I was trying to get them back, everybody believed him and her, and it just seemed completely hopeless. So I started to just lose all faith that I would ever see them again. And the pain was so immense. I got to a point where I was like, I can't feel this again tomorrow. I wouldn't say I was suicidal, but I was pretty darn close. And the thing with gaslighting, during that whole time, he was telling me, sending messages every day, like, this is your fault. This is your fault that you can't see them again. This is because you're a terrible mother. They're where they're supposed to be with me, and you're never going to see them again. And, to have my best friend backing him up, and then these therapists that would believe him because he was very convincing. It's just like, nobody believes me. I'm really never going to see them again. Maybe I'm wrong, that I'm the only one that thinks I'm a good mother and they should be with me. Maybe everybody else is right and they would be happier if I just left them alone. And that is probably the darkest moment of my entire life, to be honest with you. The one thing that saved me was my family. I have the fiercest, most committed, amazing family on earth. And I remember my mom, I'd be on the phone with her every day, multiple times a day, and her telling me, like, I know you want to give up. I know it hurts, but you don't get to. You're a mother. Like, you don't get to stop fighting. This isn't impossible. We will find a way. I don't care what it takes, because when you're a mom, you don't give up on them. And she saved my life. She was able to help me refocus on that. And I absolutely couldn't fight that battle, because that was a huge battle ahead of me, without getting myself mentally right again. Like, I was in no position to fight that depressed. So that was the second time in my life that I went back on antidepressants, just to try to get myself in a better mental position so I could come up with a game plan to fight this insurmountable mountain in front of me. Because as much as like he got in my head a lot that they were better off with him, I knew in my gut they weren't. I remembered my baby girls and that they needed me and they needed to come home. So.
oh my God. No, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, you're mourning your best friend who, you had been through so much with. And then on top of that, yeah, it is amazing, because I've just known you for so long and just seen what a mother you are. And then it's shocking to me that you could have your children taken away from you. I mean, really, it's scary. It's scary for anybody listening to this, because boy, we all think, you just think, well, I'm middle class and I'm educated and I'm all these things. How could this happen to me? And then to have it happen to you is mind blowing.
Yeah. And, I still have like PTSD from all that. I I was actually just talking to Danny yesterday, and we were talking about all the trauma that we went through. And I was like, girl, I still think, like, I look in my rearview mirror and I'm like, has that car been following me for too long? Like, is that a private investigator? Like, I still feel like it could happen. It's crazy, but
So,
that's bad mental health. The positive mental health is that
wow.
I did come back from it. And, I did fight like hell
How
to
long did
get
that
back again.
process take? You talked about you relied on your parents. You were sober at that time, which is such a gift. So I'm sure you were going to meetings and relying on your community there. You've lost your best friend at this point. You're fighting Peter. What? Okay, so how long did that dark, I guess time last?
I mean, the worst darkness of it, like that only lasted maybe like a month, like that awfulness of I kind of don't even want to be alive anymore, like that much of a bottom. And then once I went back on the medication, I put myself like back in the recovery program full time. I was, came up with a plan, was working with my sponsor and with everything. My parents flew in and took care of me for a little while. Like that took like about a month to get through that, to be able to sit with my lawyers and go, okay, what do we do now? And I wish I could say that then process didn't take that long, but that took years to
Wow.
to get them back. She and he really screwed me over that time. That was around COVID, so the court systems were shut down. So I couldn't get in front of a judge to make it right. I was at the mercy of a best interest attorney, which is an attorney that's hired to represent the children's interest. My lawyers and I decided, like, okay, we'll get this best interest attorney, we'll show her all the facts. And he agreed with his attorneys, and I agreed to give her the power to then put decide the custody schedule. That was one of the worst decisions of my life, because man, she's another one, like, I want her license, I want her disbarred, because Peter just manipulated her and paid her tens of thousands of dollars, and she would not listen to me. She would just, when I was going through his house, cleaning it out, I found, I talked about all the boxes in the basement, how he kept every document. He printed out text messages between him and her and his attorney. And it was like a Friday night. And I remember this, and I was begging her to let me see them. And I was supposed to see them, but he had like some things going on that he was like, I want to call off the visitation. And she texted him and she was like, she's texting me again. I want to enjoy my weekend. I'm not going to deal with this right now. And he's like, thanks so much. You're the best. And his attorney like was doing like the laughing emoji and was like, I just want to enjoy my weekend too. Screw her. And like, I'm at home, like sobbing because I thought they were coming over and then they just weren't there. And the three of them are on a text chat, literally laughing, like sending laughing emojis to each other. Like, that's how screwed up the situation was.
Okay, and wait a minute. So he was in charge of paying her. Like the state
Yeah.
didn't give you guys a guardian ad litem.
There
Like
was
that was a
no
neutral.
state involvement. Like, we never went before a judge. This all happened just between my attorneys and his attorneys. Like,
And
that
your
was the
attorneys
dumbest thing
agreed.
I ever did, was I gave that power to this woman, because we couldn't get in front of the courts because it was during
Right.
COVID, so everything was shut down. So it seemed
Wow,
like that's the only chance I could at least get visitation with them, was to get this woman involved. So
that
he
was
had
being
all the
paid
power.
by Peter.
I was being paid by Peter.
Oh my God! During
I
that time, like,
foolishly thought she would put the children first, but that
yeah, no,
didn't.
not if she was being paid. Yeah, by him.
Yeah. So that took like probably a year and a half. When I was seeing them, it was supervised visitation. I had to have a
Mm.
retired police officer come with us everywhere we went
Who
for
must have been
over
like,
a year. Like, I was looking up Like people, when they get out of jail and have supervised visitation, the normal like amount that lasts, if they're sober and everything, is usually no more than 30 days. Like that's the standard of care with the family law system. It's like you only would have super. I had it for over a year because he was in complete control, and he was in control of her, and she was making the decisions. And mind you, during this entire time, I have all the emails. I was screaming at her, he's not sober. Like all of your energy is on me. Like they're in danger. And she never investigated it once. I was like, look into his prescriptions, look into the things the girls are saying. The girls are saying this is happening. Never looked into it at all.
So during this time, how often would you see the girls? It would be once a week with this supervised former
At first,
police?
it was once a week, once every couple weeks. He would cancel visitations randomly, so I never knew if they were going to actually come over or not. And then we got into a regular schedule where it was a couple times a week, but they never spent the night. It was horrible. You know, they were growing up without their baby brother like regularly in their lives. It was a hellish period. But I guess the only good that came of it is I was able to work on myself like hell. Like I became so much stronger during that year because I was in the fight of my life. So like I had to do everything to strengthen myself and to compete with that Goliath.
So before he died, you had resumed 50-50. I'm assuming like eventually what the court
eventually, you know, it finally, the time period ran out where like I actually had to, I forget the loophole my attorney found. She did something brilliant where we found some conflict that we could get this best interest attorney kicked off the case. So that's the only way I was able to finally get it back, is I got her taken off the case out of the picture. So she no longer had that power to decide. So then we were left with like no schedule. So we came with this agreed upon schedule that was still supervised, but only for a certain time period. And then when that ran out, I was finally able to have them back. But I mean, I had to agree to this graduated schedule over years just to get back 40% custody. It was crazy what I agreed to with him. And so we were in that period of, it wasn't supervised anymore, but it was still not even like my regular amount of overnights when I got the call that he had, you know, this medical emergency.
Wow. I didn't realize you guys were still in that custody fight when he died.
We were still in that custody fight when he died. And what does that tell you about these attorneys? Not my attorney, but his attorneys, this best interest attorney, the therapists that were involved, the people running the supervised visitation. I remember once she was in my car and I was on speakerphone with him and he was slurring like crazy. And I was like, you hear this too. Like you're a witness that he is not. Yeah, don't even get me started. All these people.
It's about money. I know
would do anything. So
it's about money.
yeah.
Although you do a great job, I think of you know, and one of, I know your ongoing missions is to educate other women about the court system and what you can learn and what you can keep, you know, fighting and learn to represent yourself, which can save you a lot of money. And lots of times that can work too. I mean, it's very time consuming. Yeah, it's overwhelming, and it is one day at a time. I get my last question for you would be, so this lasted for years. You know, you have Harry, you're married at the time, you're working a lot on yourself. What was like the one big, I guess, personal revelation that you had? Was it about developing, you know, stronger faith, or a prayer that you said every day, or was it a therapist? What was it that, I guess, really strengthened you?
You're gonna make me cry again. So there's this, you know, there's the 12 steps in recovery. And the third step is this prayer. What's the concept of turning your will over to a higher power? If that's God, great, just something outside of yourself. And that it's not my will be done, but whatever this bigger plan is. And it was learning that lesson. I was saying that prayer every day. And it was that if I'm I'm not in control of this situation. I don't have control, and I could make myself crazy not having control, or I could turn it over that I have faith that some bigger picture is going on. Like, I turn over this custody battle to you, God, and I put it in your hands, and I will be fine with however the outcome is, just like, not my will, but your will. And that was what changed the most for me, was finally giving up control myself of wanting to have things turn out a certain way, because then every time it didn't, it was just so devastating that
Yeah, you want to give up. It's almost
release.
Overwhelming. Yeah.
It was that release that really freed me up a lot. And I mean, listen, I don't judge people of different faiths. I grew up a Christian, and that's the faith that I maintain now, except I don't think other ones are wrong. Like, however God speaks to you is between you and God. I don't know how atheists do it. No disrespect, but like, if I didn't believe there was a God that had a plan for me, I would have absolutely lost hope, because it was knowing that myself and my children were in the care of a God who loved me. And there was a reason this was all happening. It wasn't going to last forever, because God promises us that he's not going to give us more than we could bear. He wouldn't send me down this path of misery for nothing. My children were in his hands, so I knew that even though they were going through these traumatic experiences, they would be okay. That's what it saved my life, and it got me through all of that. And now that I'm on the other side, I can see that it was 100% true. I knew Peter was sick, but I didn't know he was going to die. And then the battle would be over. They would be with me for forever. I definitely didn't see that one coming, and that this journey, while it was years of hell, look at what it's enabled me to tell other women now. We paid a big price, but if it saves some other women, then okay.
Oh my God.
Yes. I say yes.
You are, look, if anybody has any doubt that there's a God, I feel like you're living it. I mean, I do. And I don't say that to be like, mean about him passing away, but I'm saying, like, again, I think people are realizing the good, the bad, but also just how much he tortured so many people for so long. And it's like, holy shit, like, there is a God. Like, you went through so much, and now you guys and the girls get to live this life of freedom, and it sucks to say it that way, but there's a part of it that's true. It's just, yeah, unbelievable.
Unbelievable, but my life.
Here you are. You are helping other people, but big price, and saying yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I hope this helps somebody else with their mental health, and knowing that there's happiness around the corner. They just have to keep moving forward, one day at a time, one step at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time. It does get better, my friend.
And you're not alone. Yeah.
You're not alone.
You're not alone. Look for those family members and friends, and, sponsors, therapists, the people that are good, that are rooting for you, and just one moment at a time. Natasha, okay, this episode was amazing. People can, like we said at the beginning, we're open to every week. We kind of want to take a theme and dig a little bit deeper into our own personal stories. And that's the whole goal, right? We share our stories to hopefully help somebody else. So if people want to contact you, do you still want people to contact you by Instagram? Yeah. What's the best way?
Yeah, that's the easiest way. I'm trying so bad to get through my DM. So if it takes me, a few days, I will get there. But that's the best way, is send a message through Instagram, comment on a post, or send me a DM at Ms. Pink Monster, MS Pink Monster.
That's and if you guys, Natasha and I talk all the time. So if there is a topic you want us to cover, same thing. You can DM Natasha, you can DM at the Sarah Fraser Show. And then each week we're just going to keep going and see where it goes. Yeah. See you next week, girl.
Bye, my love.
Bye.